improvements today. Focus on the tip. As my introduction, I'm Steve Iacchetta. Honor and privilege to facilitate these meetings. Zoom participants, friendly reminder, please type your full name and affiliation, if possible, into your ID on screen to ensure we keep accurate minutes of attendance. I know some voting members are also online when they're at the table here. So welcome once again. Commencing the meeting, we do have a quorum. Are there any visitor issues? Oh, we do self-introductions going around the table. Thank you, Cindy.
Sure, no
Sandy
problem.
Biswitz, our distinguished leader.
So Minnesota CDTC.
Jacob Beeman, CDTC.
Greg Richard, Regional DOT.
Bob Rice, near DOT. Andrew Preshik, City of Troy.
Tom Tobin, Mayor of the Village of Colony.
Joe Stephen Graves, City of Cohoes.
Ross Farrell, CDTA.
John Scavo, Town of Clifton Park.
Ryan Ryford, Town of Wilton.
Tina Carton, City of Saratoga Springs.
Liz Cornwell's Village of Wilson Spa. Elisa Armando, Albany County.
Mike Butler, City of Mechanical.
Mark Hammond, Supervisor Town of Malta.
Mike Valentine, Saratoga County.
Chris Bauer, CDTC staff. And Gillespie County Screenway.
Say Pottstown of Gilliland.
Patrick Jordan for Walden.
Teresa LaSalle, CDTC staff.
Melissa Chandler, CDTA. I'm Terry Ford, CDTC staff.
Good word and online.
We'll again remind the folks online to place your full name and affiliation either in your Hollywood Square, as they say, or in the chat pod so that we can keep accurate attendance records. Thank you.
And thank you for your support and taking time out of your busy schedules for this important mission today. Item 2 on our agenda are visitor issues. Always an opportunity to address the Board of the Planning Committee. Are there any visitors wishing to address the committee at this time? There were no pre-registrants, so we move right to our first action item, administrative is adoption of our prior meeting minutes of April 27th. We've had a weekly due diligence. Are there any comments, corrections, items of note regarding the minutes that were distributed online on our webpage and not in paper?
We're not sending paper anymore.
Very
The
good.
mail is just unfortunately too unreliable.
So adoption of the minutes, I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Table, Bob Rice, second by,
Second.
thank you. Well, is there any further comment on the minutes? And they will be posted online once again. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? The minutes of April 27th are adopted. Item 3B is the Transportation Improvement Program Fiscal Constraint. This is our running story every meeting. Table 4 is updated for the most up-to-date version. It was a handout on the table, also available online, and this shows our balance of the 5-year program.
Yes, and we have no recent changes in fiscal constraint, and we're under programmed in all 4 years. So no changes, all things look good.
If we're in balance and there's no correspondence from Federal Highway and we are in full conformance.
We are.
Excellent.
Great.
Good work. So further action items, agenda item 4. First up, item A is the draft progress and expenditure report for 21 and 2022, and Sandy will lead us.
Yep, so there was a full draft of the report available on our website, which I know you read cover to cover. But I did want to just touch upon a few highlights. This report is a semi-annual report for the FTA and then part of an annual report for the Federal Highway Administration that documents basically staff progress for the use of our planning funds. We have 2 fund sources that support our work plan and our staff, our consultant work and what have you. So some things that we completed, I mean, as you all know, sitting in this room, the bulk of what we've done in the last 6 months is the TIP. We put a lot of time and energy into the TIP, air quality conformity. That was a major staff effort. As you also know, we approved, generated and or developed and approved new unified planning work program for this year. So that too was a major staff effort. We completed a linkage study in the Village of Boston Spa, which was subsequently adopted by the village, so congratulations on that. We had completed 3 technical assistance projects. We have completed some local road curve data collection as part of our safety program, where we're going to do some analysis related to roadway safety departures. We also began a traffic count data collection program, which we hope to make an annual program so that we can collect some traffic volume data and gather some metrics as we think about and document changes as a result of COVID and work from home and other changes in the region. We've been investing a lot of time and staff effort into updating and maintaining our GIS databases. That includes developing infrastructure data layers, such as for bike lanes and on-road bicycle facilities, keeping our sidewalk data up to date, crosswalks, sidewalks, all of these features we've been putting, and we're also hiring a GIS transportation analyst to help support our data collection work moving forward. In addition to data collection, we delivered for Albany County and the city of Albany their highway condition inventory reports. So we go out and survey all of their roadways and develop a road score and develop a report for that. We planned, coordinated, and hosted 6 webinars as part of our division's virtual learning series, and we intend to continue that series. We have AICP credits for professional planners available. We're looking into perhaps getting them certified for PDHs for engineers. So it's another thing we're hoping to offer our members and our community at large. Capital District Clean Communities, we hosted a number of electric vehicle events, most recently as a result of related to Earth Day. I think the most recent was here in the city of Albany, correct?
Yep, on Saturday.
We also provided travel demand modeling services to 7 communities and NISDOT, including a significant effort related to the Sibley Road Bridge and sort of the impact that bridge hit had on traffic and planning for the new bridge. And finally, we completed 6 development project reviews in the town of Colony, 5 in the town of Malta, and those are related to those 2 contracts we have with those 2 communities on doing traffic impact assessments for related to their generic environmental impact statements. So the dollar figures that are in this draft report that you're seeing on screen now are draft. That's why we have slapped the word draft on this in very bold letters. The reason for the financial piece still being draft is we have to complete our financial closeout as an organization. That's happening as we speak. It'll be completed before our policy board meeting in June, at which point we'll have final figures. So if you have any questions about the numbers or anything you're seeing, just keep that in mind. So that's a quick overview of the report. And we just need a motion from you folks to approve it and recommend policy board approval.
Questions, comments at this time? What would be the standard deviation of changes? Can we say it would be less than 10%, 5%, 3%, anything like that of changes for the audit function you said is ongoing?
It's hard to say. I would say probably in the neighborhood of 5% here or there, depending on the task. There's just some background things that happen on the accounting side that get finalized.
Very reasonable. Any other comments or questions for Sandy before we move it? Motion, please. Mr. Mundo, second by Patrick. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstaining or opposed? The expenditure report is adopted.
Thank you.
Next up is it TIP program amendments time?
It is actually UPWP.
UPWP.
Yes.
Sorry.
So we had some more good news on our planning fund side of the house, where, as you recall, as a result of the infrastructure law that was passed, we received additional planning funds through the Federal Highway Administration. Because of the different procedural and regulatory requirements on the FTA side, we had estimates for the FTA funding. We now have a final number, which actually increased our PL or MPP funds, I should say, by about $100,000. So we needed to amend our work plan to account for these new funds. What that enabled us to do is, first of all, we increased our budget to spend on committee activities, which obviously we've had a lot of these meetings, so that was good. We're going to put some more effort into the environmental justice Title VI line. We had a gap in our transportation data collection. This new funding allowed us to fill a gap so that we can maintain our annual data collection consultant work for the coming year. We also shifted some funds between PL and FTA just to kind of smooth things out between all the different fund sources. So all of the task lines that you're seeing on the screen just sort of reflect the addition of that $100,000 and a rebalancing between our two fund sources that support our work plan. And again, we need a motion to approve the amendment.
The amendment is summarized. Are there any questions or comments on Sandy's presentation for UPWP adoption? Questions? Ready to move? Motion, please. Move. Russ, Farrell, and second by Bob. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstaining or opposed? UPWP is hereby adopted. Thank you. And now we're up to 4C, capital coexist solicitation.
And then I'll let Jen speak to that one.
Jen?
Sure. So, as most of you know, we have the Capital Coexist Traffic Safety Ambassador Program. It's an annual grant solicitation. It's a very small grant. The max to be requested is $5,000. This year, we have changed the program again slightly. So we have two separate programs within Capital Coexist. There's one program that we've reserved $20,000 for local governments to do traffic demonstration projects. So those are like your temporary, low cost, quick build types of projects to test out concepts before making them permanent and to do public outreach. And then we have made $15,000 available to local law enforcement agencies to do outreach on traffic safety. So we've had a lot of success working with local police departments on traffic safety events. So we want to continue to support that. And another change is that we're going to be accepting applications on a rolling basis until funds are exhausted. So usually we send out a solicitation, there's a due date, we find all the clients at once, but this time we're going to accept them on a rolling basis. So we're asking the committee to approve the $35,000. $35,000 in planning funds for these traffic safety education outreach programs.
Very good. Thank you, Jen. Any questions or discussion on this capital coexist solicitation coming up? Questions?
Yeah, so my question was, for the pilot programs, do they need to follow this table? So they're only the types of projects that you would propose fit into those categories? So for bicyclists, it would only be looking at intersections?
Oh, no, so those are just, like, those should be looked at as like just two separate types of, there's the road users that we're looking at in emphasis area. So projects should be consistent with the New Vision principles, but also the local road safety action plan. So we have called out like specific types of vulnerable users that are a priority, and then we have emphasis areas, but they don't have to overlap. So if your project is geared towards youth bicyclists, that is fulfilling like a vulnerable user, or if it's it is focused on intersection safety, that would be fulfilling the emphasis area.
Right.
So it just has to meet that criteria.
These were when we did the data analysis for the region, these were the areas for which the crash data showed we have the biggest problems. That's why we were trying to highlight them to get you folks thinking about that when you're considering a safety application.
If your project does hit both of them, that's an extra.
Correct.
Ready for motion? Adam? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, capital coexist solicitation is approved. Item 4D Delta is the 2019 through 2024 Transportation Improvement Program amendments, ready to go on tip amendments. And I think Bob will lead us. or something.
Yeah, no, as I'm sure some of you know, that there were $5 million included in this year's state budget. Be looking to advance the analysis recommendations that came out of the previous CDTC study. Certainly a lot of emphasis placed on the waterfront, the historic district in the city of Albany. But the other analysis areas also about looking at the railroad operation as well as the Dunn South Mall interchange area. And, you know, as we've talked about previously, I mean, we're spending quite a bit of money on bridge preservation through there, as well as other areas along the corridor to improve access to the waterfront. So our executives are meeting or have scheduled a meeting with the legislative leaders there to sort of finalize the scope of that and to get some of this kicked off. But we wanted to make sure that the money was available on the tip. It's not competing against other funds at the table. It's funded from statewide flex funds.
It's a plus.
Yeah.
And we'll go to policy board being over the threshold.
So we'll have
5
to go to the
million
policy
flex
board.
money. Very good, Bob. Thanks. Any questions or further discussion? We're ready to move. Are uncomfortable? Motion, please. Thank you, Patrick. Second by
Second.
Liz. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, the tip amendment is hereby adopted. Thank you. Agenda item.
Just to back up for a second, Liz, you're not a voting member right now, so.
Oh, I'm not.
You can't make a, so Andrew will
Andrew,
have you.
I'm sorry.
be
Yeah,
second
actually,
on that
Andrew
one.
had a
Sorry. I just
didn't know
doing
what-
that, like, wait.
Okay.
Yep, it's okay.
Very good. Sorry. Protocol is important. And we follow procedure. Okay, now we're to the cylinder action items. So we did the engineering feasibility. I-77 corner.
We're on number 2.
Number 2. Page 2, number 2. Regional project 130, CDTC 32, travel demand management and multimodal set aside for regional transit. And we have Ross Farrell table.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do 2 and 3 together, and then 4 through 12. I think that's the last one together. Sandy, that
Both
makes
items
sense.
2 and 3, committee concurs. Go ahead, Russ.
All right.
Thank you.
So at the last meeting, 2 meetings ago, we talked about the TDM set aside, which is a smaller set aside. That's the majority of that's funded by CDTA. And this is the remainder of that TDM set aside. So T108 is the set aside is going to, we're in reverse. RG 130 is the set aside. So we're going to draw down that money and put it into T108. This is the final year of us having set aside money. And that's going to go to the programs that can be funded through SDP Flex, which are our van pool program and our guaranteed ride home program. After this amount of money is then when all of these programs are going to be fully funded by CDTA with our internal dollars. So this is just the remainder of RG 130 that's on this current tip, but obviously the next tip, the set aside won't exist. Programs will continue, but the set aside won't exist. So really just looking for a motion to have this money drawn down from the set aside into the project, which is T108.
Any questions for Ross at this time? Discussion. This further clarifies our prior actions, prior meetings.
Yes, yep.
Presented as a follow-through clarification item. Other discussion, other members? Discussion, okay. Are we comfortable moving? Both items as presented, number 2 and 3 on page 2 of our agenda. Motion, please. Bob Rice, second by Rondo. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstaining or opposed? Going once, twice, hearing none. Adopted. Thank you, Russ. Okay.
So then-
Russ.
4 through 12 go together. Melissa Shanley is here, our grants manager. So if there's any specific questions on each one, we can talk about them. But what this essentially is CDTA's, a good amount of our funding comes from the federal government, it's federal subsidy, because it's federal dollars, we have to show it actually on the tip. So anytime we pass our budget at CDTA, the tip has to be changed to reflect that. As you can see from the name of each one of these, they're mainly focused on our fleet or our actual facilities where our fleet is held. And so it's a number of different projects in particular, but again, it's really just focused on what our basically our fleet. And this is the money that, you know, isn't competitive. It's the money that goes from to CDTA, just like any transit authority. So we can do each one, or it's probably just easier to do them all as one to make sure the tip accurately reflects CDTA's budget.
4 through 12. So it's 4 and 5 of our agenda packet. 4 through 12. Is the committee comfortable moving numbers 4 through 12 as a combined action item?
Yes.
Next discussion, anything further for us?
Who was the second?
Steve, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstaining or opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving right on. Go to B, Echo for the TIP program update.
Great,
Sandy.
thank you. So here's the headliner for today's meeting. I'll ask Jacob to sort of recap what we completed at the last meeting as the first cut. And then we'll jump into how we want to approach the balance. So, go ahead, Jacob.
So as many of you probably remember, we made our way most of the way through the program last week. We went through the bridge preservation and bridge beyond preservation categories, pavement preservation and pavement beyond preservation categories, and the other category. And we had one project programmed in the intersection and safety category. And that was because it was an HSIP eligible project. So that was actually approved, fully approved, not tentatively approved, like other projects prior to the walkthrough. So right now, today, we are hoping to move through the remaining intersection and safety projects that have yet to be programmed, and the bike and ped projects, which we haven't looked at either. Right now, we have a total programmed amount, including all of our set-asides, of $298 million. And that's out of our total overall planning target, which was about $306 million. So right now, we're looking about $8 million left on the table. That's if all of the existing projects that we approved as first cut remain. So we've got a couple summary tables here that kind of break it down further that we were walking through last week. Right now, kind of at a big picture, we have 235 million programmed in DOT in site-specific in multi-site projects. We have about 56 million in local. That's including the CDTA set aside. And then we have our HSIP set aside at $7 million. So about 20%, 18% local, again, including the CDTA set aside. And 79% DOT right now. We can also, if anyone wants to dig in further, we can break it down by sponsor. So that's where we stand right now, and we are hoping to, again, move into those remaining categories, but we'd be happy to open any discussion first to talk about the funds remaining or an approach to programming.
Did you
quickly just sum up county?
By county?
By percentage.
I don't have county in here, but we could just,
Schenectady County, 7.5 million, Saratoga County, 5.5, Albany County, 20.7, 20.8 million. Rensselaer County, 4.8. That's projects in the
In the
county
counties, yeah.
that,
Okay, I was gonna
that are, so, other than DOT,
Quick recap of that
local
straight.
projects.
all of, that's the way I have it. I have
One more time.
4 applications from Schenectady County got funded for 7.53. 4 from Saratoga at 5.52. 6 from Albany County at 20.77 million. And 1 from Rensselaer County at 4.823 million. That's what I have. I'm not saying I'm the, I did my own spreadsheet. So,
Look at your 30.
so, you know, there was only 3 applications in Rensselaer County.
That is
Unless
correct.
unless I missed it.
Yep,
There's
that's correct.
23 in Albany County, 25 in Saratoga County, Mike. And 11 in Schenectady.
He's gonna keep this rolling.
I mean, that's
He had all
my
this for
goal. I
last
could be
week.
off.
That's
Thanks for staying up late, Steve. This is great data.
I have Andrew looking at it too, so we can
Okay.
confirm this.
So Albany County has the bulk of the projects funded, you know, because you have a water leak, Green Island, hose, 3 from Albany City. So, you know, some of those are pretty big.
So, you know, we made sure in the first cut, because of the Rensselaer County story, that we considered that and, you know,
That's basically what I'm looking for Rensselaer County, since the county itself has rescinded itself from putting itself on the tip, that a geographic balance is assumed by other Rensselaer County entities to provide some sort of balancing mechanism.
So far, it's like I said, it's not bad, 4.8. 5.5 for Schenectady, so
What's that Albany number again?
20.7.
Thank
Big.
you.
Would now be the time to stump for, and although Albany County does have the majority of the funds from this municipality standpoint, would now be the time to stump for our project, or should we wait until everything else is done?
well, I think we can, I think one thing that we wanted to confirm, which is tied to what Lisa would like to discuss, is the program as we have in this first cut, everybody's comfort level with what we're describing. Because, you know, if we want to make a change, now would be the time to do it. That was intended to be a draft. Hence the term first cut. But now would be the time to speak to any particular topic related to those projects that were identified as in the first cut or sort of on the bubble. As you know, Lisa was at a little bit of a disadvantage last meeting because of travel. So we wanted to give her the opportunity to kind of respond to some of the questions that were being asked about the Albany Shaker Road project. So if you want to, why don't you go ahead and speak to that?
Okay, so Albany County applied for one TIP project in this round, and the project is for safety, traffic flow, and pedestrian improvements along Albany Shaker Road corridor. It's a 2.7 mile stretch of roadway, and we feel this is a very strong project. And we'd like to move forward with the project as it was submitted without taking elements out, because Albany Shaker Road is a very important through corridor. Oftentimes when I-90 is backed up, Albany Shaker Road becomes the alternative. And this project proposes both safety and functioning improvements at all of the intersections along the corridor. In addition, it takes away some safety issues that we have with opposing left turn lanes. And it adds almost 2 miles of sidewalks. It's connecting sidewalks that are absent from the crossings all the way down through Everett Road and onto Everett Road. It didn't score well, which it perplexed me. Like when we saw the low score, we were kind of like, well, you know, well, what else is everybody else proposing? And I'm sure everybody else's projects have great merit, but there were a couple of spots where we thought, complete streets, we only scored a 2 for complete streets. And with the abundance of sidewalks that we're adding, it kind of perplexed me as to why that would be the case. And we're also taking away some of the medians and widening shoulders, straightening out, again, the opposing left turn lanes. There was another location, project delivery at a -1. We were just curious about that one. That took, even if it was like a 0 or a 1, we thought we maybe should have scored higher on that one. And the multimodal, we got a 0 for that and thought it should have been higher. But I just wanted to say that we appreciate the consideration. We think this is a very important project. And knowing that there's $8 million left, I believe this project, the projected cost with inflation, which who knows what inflation is at this point now, is about $6 million. That said, if keeping the project as a whole, if the county needed to kick in more of a share, we would be willing to do that.
Commissioner, any questions?
By the sounds of it, at a minimum, it sounds like there's some pedestrian safety stuff that would qualify systemically for HSIP. Is there any, you mentioned some high crash rates, is there any, do we feel like there's any?
Refresh our memory this on.
So what I'm going is that there's a $7 million block of HSIP that is kind of locked up in that category, and you can only use it if you qualify. And it
Right.
sounds like at least a portion of this project would qualify. Which
That's, so that would be funds hand in hand, like partial tip, partial that,
It would-
or
it
as a
would,
whole.
it would have a lower net impact for the remaining programming if.
Okay, understood.
You would get those funds from the HC.
From that.
Yeah.
And then
It-
whatever is remaining would need to be programmed under the beyond.
Okay. One of the things I thought of too was that, we do our hauling and placing projects every year. And if we included the actual resurfacing of the roadway under our hauling and placing, which is CHIPS funds, perhaps that would lower the amount. There would be more to go around.
Is that touring rate at all?
They don't get touring
No,
rates.
they don't.
No.
So looking at the analysis we did, I believe that there would be a potential for some HSIP. I know we did that on the previous Albany Shaker Road project, with some of the sidewalk work and intersection work, as I recall. So that's a possibility that could be further explored. Part of the reason why this project came up in conversation at the table was it was the only application from the county, even though there are other applications funded in the first cut within the municipalities, local governments. It's hard to describe the difference between the counties and the municipalities, but it's really a committee decision. If the county is willing to put in more funds, we could consider funding this project. You saw the data that we have in the first cut, looking at it by sponsor. Saratoga County has 4 projects. Obviously NISA has the most, but the city of Albany has 3. Beyond that, most of the sponsors have 1 or 2. But given, that there were no applications from Albany County, that's where the question was.
Much appreciated.
What would you anticipate the CHIPS contribution to be if you were to use that for the resurfacing?
About $1 million.
$1 million?
This is a 5.9 estimate.
Yes. Yeah.
There's only 7.9 left to program.
Correct.
And
My concern is we haven't programmed anything in bike ped or the intersection, say, right? And I mean,
And Schenectady has a big one in bike path.
$40 million in this category.
Important.
Could each cover what percentage? Is it half, or can you estimate approximate percentages could be safety related. Sounded like that was a key component.
I mean, I'd wager. It's really hard to guess without some real analysis, but perhaps 1 million of HSIP, but it could be a lot more depending on an analysis, which would have to be done later, which is sort of a.
The problem with the
Yeah.
basic fund source is
Yeah.
not specific to your
Yeah.
project, it's just the fund
I
source.
mean,
challenging.
The crash analysis would
Yeah.
reveal more money than the kind of improvement.
Right. The head improvements could be in the hundreds of thousands, and then the safety benefit is another layer that could
Mhm.
tease out a lot more HSIP.
It's not crash data out there. right?
Yeah, that was part of what we would study the crash data. We do know Maxwell Road roundabout, 39 reported crashes, but because it's the roundabout, only 2 injury accidents there. Crash history at Osborne Road, 59 in 3 years, 39 at Maxwell in 3 years, and 25 at Everett.
Really high. The key with the HSIP though is that it needs to be a remedy that based on the patterns and stuff, that there is some sort of improvement to improve that. Not knowing if they're all animal hits, it doesn't. help.
Right, a
Yeah,
lot of it
yeah.
has to like lining up the left turn lanes is
Yeah.
is a big piece of it.
So if there's side swipes and that's the history and you can do something with it, it makes it eligible. for it.
Yeah. I think that the improvements we're proposing would be tangible, like we would be able to reduce accidents.
Well,
So,
then, you want
but-
to compete for HSIP money then, that's why we set it aside. I mean, it's still,
Right,
I mean, I'm the one who brought up the fact that Albany County had one project. and
Right.
Just give them an opportunity to speak, but we have 7.9 million left. If we fund this project, there's nothing left. And there's
It's-
$40 million funded in this category already, or 39.
how would it
And
work?
this would be $27 million in Albany County, 5 and change in Saratoga, 7 and change. I mean, it just would be a lot. I don't know if that's, I don't know how you, I know Albany County is the biggest county, but it's,
Is
we're
it,
skipping over a lot of projects to get to this project.
is it possible to fund design? The studies, studying all of this stuff, and then would that then lead us into whether or not we would qualify for the additional funding?
It would, and that's something.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. We didn't want to start the conversation.
Start that again.
But certainly, I would say it would make it very competitive for other solicitations as well. We've funded work, even the CMAC portion of TAP CMAC has been for some mobility type improvements that it's been good candidates for. And I said it at all the meetings here. I mean, with the competitive nature of both a lot of state and a lot of the new federal bill funding, the design approval in hand is light years above just having an idea for a project. So just our opinion, yes, I mean, it should have merit to have the design piece done to it.
What about, how does that impact? So if design cost, it could potentially be 650,000, it could be $1 million. Are we eligible for reimbursement for design, even though it isn't constructed?
Correct, yeah.
We would be, okay.
The new highway bill, you used to have to show your whole project on the tip, but the new highway bill removed the 10-year rule, and you no longer have to show your whole project any longer.
I mean, Maria's not here from Federal Highway, but we talked about this at the last couple of meetings. I mean, there's a tangible benefit to a design approval, that's a commodity by itself
Sure.
there, that they see as a benchmark or milestone that has it. And now, without the 10-year rule, it's not clicking that you need to be to construction,
Okay,
but not that you'd want to wait that long, but with all these competitive solicitations, it puts you
sure.
at certainly a competitive advantage.
Yeah, no, that would that would be great. I mean, because you have to start somewhere.
To
Start
consider,
with design.
you have your design, the gap between design and construction, then is that something that's palatable to you? because that's a question mark that remains out there.
Well,
So,
so if it was designed, potentially the county could then fund the project if we didn't qualify for other,
okay,
right?
so you have a non-viable option.
Yeah,
And you could tease out the official HSIP portion,
right.
which would
That, would-
help. If it's a lot of HSIP, if you qualify for 3 million in HSIP, that's a much different conversation. If you qualify for 500,000, you know,
right,
but we don't know until the analysis is done.
okay.
So that'd be a benefit.
Which would be helpful. If there's still money in the HIP pot, it could be proposed to the planning committee again, post, once we have a new tip.
Yeah.
If there's still money in that set aside, and now we've got a viable candidate for it, that could be brought forward again. So,
You're conceivably reducing a 6 million project to a 2 million project between HSIP and CHIPS.
Could the design funds be pulled from HSIP?
Not until you tease out the benefit. Early on, they do, they can switch over to HSIP, but yeah.
That would be the first thing to do, would be figure that out as part, yeah.
Does it lend itself to phasing at all? Or would you want to do the in its entirety?
To me, I would like to be able to design it in its entirety and then, you know, figure out how to fund the construction if we had to do that in pieces, then. But to me, it would make sense to do it as an entire corridor from a design perspective.
I'll propose a motion for design only project for consideration.
How much is it?
650, you said?
Well, I can't, I'm thinking our New Carno Road project was 650 tip design, today's dollars. So,
Split the
I'm
baby
thinking-
800.
yeah,
Pricing.
yeah, let's say 850.
825.
825 and a two.
Yeah, I mean, we
It
should
is, I
have
don't
an
have it in
official
front of me.
in our application.
Right.
And I guess that's my overall thought with any design only is may there
Let's
be
see
an
here.
opportunity to go back and say, what's the actual,
Yeah.
what's actually needed?
For
If
design.
we're gonna start just chipping things off the block here at the
Okay,
table.
so
What was in the application?
in the
We need
application,
to pull that up in the
Yeah.
other office, so.
I think I have this printout that is, it doesn't account for inflation. It's so, but we're showing 621,000 for design.
What we probably, what year did
So-
you request the design in?
21. I'll
21,
pass this down to Sandy because
so it's 4%. Okay. Yeah, you're right around 650.
Hi, this is Andrew on Zoom. I'm looking at the Albany Shaker Road application. Is that correct? The design cost they requested was 756,000.
750? Okay.
756, yeah, before inflation.
I'll grant it.
So 780. 4% inflation would be 780.
Okay. Oops. More money.
Does that come out of HSIP? Set aside?
No.
Not right now.
Not initially.
No, this would come out of the 7 million left available to program, so it's the committee's discretion.
Can we put a placeholder there for this section? Are we going to be talking about beyond preservation projects right now as a group?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so why don't we, start a tab
Mhm.
and see where this section brings us, because we've got a couple other sections to consider for full programming. That being said, the city of Troy does have a project, the Federal Street Corridor Improvements, as a fully funded potential project on this. Our second project was related to the Congress Ferry Corridor and an intersection that would be constructed over the Congress Street Bridge that works in conjunction with a current project, Part 339 we have for the Congress Ferry corridor currently on the tip. That is a mill and fill essentially. It also culminates at the point of deflection, I guess, for South Troy Industrial Park Road Phase 2, which we are posed to let as soon as DOT gives us approval to do so. All right-of-way acquisitions have been acquired and we're ready to go. So it's kind of like a perfect storm. That project placed number 3 on the intersection safety rundown. The Federal Street corridor, we currently have a linkage study going on in that. But for the city's, from the city's perspective, the Congress Ferry project that DOT had suggested was a good candidate for design right now. We would prefer to have that project fully funded and flip Federal Street to a design only if that is something that could be funded, since we're entering, we still have pretty much a year on the linkage and with the public interaction and such. So Congress Ferry is actually a little cheaper, but we would like to see that fully funded as opposed to the Federal Street. So for consideration on the pavement beyond preservation, when you're looking at Troy's project within that category, so 4.823.
Project 93 is the, what we call the River Ferry intersection project, also known as the Congress Ferry.
Yes.
So you're proposing that be fully funded, swapping that Federal Street project, which is project number 21, and switching that one to design only.
That would be ideal if that could be done.
Dollars involved with that.
The I don't have the project listing.
So they hit on the existing 7.9, it'd be what, another $500,000?
It's close to washing.
Well, it's not a wash if you want design,
Correct.
or
But the
because
design,
the design.
the design
Funding
on-
design on in a category that we've already funded.
right, design
So we'd be adding to that category.
slightly.
4.8, I don't know, what's $500,000.
Yeah.
Our design is gonna.
Trying to keep it
more
under
than
a
that,
million.
right?
Yes,
20%.
but there's a net reduction on the full project cost because the Congress River total price was less than the Federal Street total price.
I'm just saying the hit on the 7.9 would be
Probably about
600,000. 400, 500.
let's say 5 roughly.
We
I'm
should be able
assuming
to
that
figure it
that has
out,
to be
right?
verified.
Based on what they asked for.
Yeah, we're gonna get that information.
So I'm
from
gonna
our-
keep chipping away at this. I just know we're gonna keep chipping away at the 7.9.
Yeah.
Andrew, if you're listening, could you look up the design figure, please, for project number 21?
Yep, I'm working on it.
Modern technology, we've got eyes everywhere.
Okay, from their application, the design cost was 630,000.
Okay, thank you. And that's without inflation, Andrew?
Yes, and they were requesting design in the first year and construction in the third year.
Here,
So we would have inflated by 6%, I believe.
Push that out to the second year.
second year, okay. So we'll just inflate 630 by 6%. What's that do for us?
668.
668 with inflation. Okay. So as was alluded to, while the total project cost of those two projects offset, in essence, though, the proposal would be requesting another 668,000, more or less. For Tory projects, as we noted at the beginning, when you're looking at geographic balance within the region, there were only 3 applications in Rensselaer County, so that's partially why the proposal is being made. So again, the discretion's up to the committee. These two actions, if you were to accept them, so 668, almost 2 million of the remaining balance of 779 would be taken up with programming,
Is that considering the Albany County project?
including the Albany County project. Any discussion?
How much is it? Project? Maybe we want to replace it.
What was our river ferry total?
River Ferry was 4.8.
Oh, 82, 803.
Yes.
20,000.
Yes.
Some pocket change left.
Exactly.
You get a cup of coffee with this project.
Andrew, is there a larger scope? I guess the connection to the Congress Street Bridge, and that is there you're comfortable with a distinct scope for the intersection to make this work? Is there enough money there? I think
There should be.
around asking.
There should be. I mean, when we did the study on the bridge, to convert the bridge or reduce the lanes on the bridge in conjunction with the city of Waterville to do their intersection on their side, when we had anticipated earmarked funding from Congress.
This was a piece of that.
This was a
right?
piece of this. That project in its entirety was a sum of components that needed to be considered, and the old overbuild with the slipways coming off the bridge into the city, and the number of lanes that are servicing the communities are too much at this time. It also, the configuration now that we're coming to the fruition of the industrial park road and being able to potentially dedicate that as a truck route through the city, we need alternatives from that northern section for trucks to continue on to get to Hoosick or the highway or 787. And this would serve that purpose in conjunction with the TIP project that's currently programmed. We also have the Sage College Tunnel to contend with as part of this in its entirety, and that is coming to the end of its useful life, quite frankly. Just like a bridge, tunnel has its issues, and this has significant issues associated with it. So this would allow us to entertain that in the scope of the broader project.
I think from a DOT perspective, we would certainly concur with the swap if they want it. And with the completion of the South Troy, like you said, that intersection is going to become more and more.
It's amazing. I can say that without kind of catching my breath.
What, the DOT concurred?
That's just the frosting.
Oh.
So just summing up the impact, if we were to consider the ASR at Albany Shaker Road, it's showing up for ASR. Albany Shaker Road at 780,000 for design only, swapping funding River Ferry, ID number 93 in full, and switching Federal Street ID number 21 to design only at 668,000. Those two design only projects would sum to about 1.5 million. So reducing that from the 7.9 available. Now, I know we're going to get to the bike ped in the intersection, obviously, a big unknown that, is unfortunate, is the TAP CMAC. I wish we'd had that information. Unfortunately, we don't. We may have it tomorrow, we may have it 3 weeks from now, we just don't know, but, but keep in mind that we do feel confident that some of these projects are going to make that cut. We just don't know which ones. But I think that's safe to say. Do you want to speak to that?
There's only one project right now that would help.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter. These other projects aren't funded. The TAP CMAC is the Cohoes project. It's the only one that we funded that's.
I'm not sure what you mean by help.
It will help with, you're saying, to give us more money for program. Right now, the only one that, if we had the announcements, the only one that's, we have programmed that is, as an application for TAP CMAC is the Cohoes project.
Right, I think.
Right, but
what I
of the
was-
remainder, there's a whole bunch.
Right, there's, I think upwards of 7 TAP CMAC proposals that are currently not in the first cut. So if we were to receive an announcement tomorrow, we believe we could get at least maybe 2, maybe 3 of those.
How do we, in that scenario, how do we move something up? Or whatever? Do we sit there and say, we've done before, we had a line,
Mhm.
and then we said whatever was next underneath that line, if it was funded through CMAC, that everybody agreed, concurred. I don't have anything, I'm just asking the
Yeah,
question.
no, we have the data
I
here.
don't have anything that I know.
Yeah, we have the data and we know which projects are eligible for TAP, or were applications for TAP CMAC. What we don't know, which we did know, was what was actually funded.
So I'm just saying, is that something we concur with automatically here? If today is our end date, do we concur and then we don't have to revisit? Or do we have to come back here?
We
just
would
for-
still have to come back and take an action to add those projects to our tip. So whether they make that announcement tomorrow or they make it in July, either way, this body would take an action. And, let's face it, we're at a point where, assuming you're comfortable with the first cut, we could even put pencils down, see what happens during the public review process and revisit, at the policy board meeting in June. Remember, we still have public review to go through. We could see when these announcements happen. I think there's just a lot of variables. There's no easy answers.
So I should still scream, holler, stamp my feet and.
You can jump up and down, just.
I expect nothing less.
I think the audience listening virtually would be highly entertained.
I only say that for the fellow behind me for his benefit.
I'm just saying, the only project at this point that would put more money into the programming pot is the Cohoes project at 5.9 million. The other TAP CMAX, in some ways, they don't matter. I mean, it's nice that if they get funded, that's great. We just come back and add them to the tip as an automatic thing. The only project that would throw more money into the pot is one project. That's it. That's it. So it's not like a bunch of these projects that we funded are TAP CMAC eligible, and oh boy, if they get their eligibility, we're gonna get some money.
Is this
one project?
Is this something then, as DOT had, no, yes, the proposed, would you be amenable to design only at this phase, and then if CMAC funds become available, you can fully fund?
No, I cannot.
You could, okay.
I was gonna say, we could, there's a couple ways to go about it. I think there's some comfortability if we overprogram by about 6 to 8 million. It's can you kind of get pencils down with 6 to 8 million overprogrammed, anticipating that much relief. The region does well in TAP CMAC, historically. Like any commercial, you see past performance is no indication of future, funding. If we overprogrammed here today by another 6 to 8 million, I feel like we could.
It's still as a first cut.
As a first
To
cut.
your point, I don't think we're near ready for the public comment period. I would love to have the answer announcement about those to get closer to the number. But as a first cut and establishing the priorities.
Are you
It-
saying
it
you
probably
have
makes
projects on here as a department that may do well with CMAC?
No,
that are
We don't, but if we,
No, I mean, we're just comfortable that there's gonna be enough tap CMAC to over program at this exercise.
we'll
In
leave
the
it back
6 to
down.
8 million that will be swapped out for statewide funds to get us closer to the planning
That's
target.
good guidance. There's also a historic precedent that we have in prior tips been over program. And there's a rolling.
So if we
Always
were to
anticipate.
do that, what would the 7.9 million would then become 14 to 16 million for programming?
It isn't. Wouldn't it only be the one program, a project that's currently identified for Cohoes that would be eligible? So the over programming would just consider
So-
that cost.
Do you want to clarify your?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm anticipating one of two scenarios. One is we pick up other projects that are likely tap candidates. And so we're gonna pick up a couple more that would provide relief when CMAX announced. And in the worst case scenario, because DOT proposed this idea, we would provide an overmatch to one of our projects to put a little spend money back in the table, just to try to balance this and keep things moving.
In that
So it's
scenario,
gonna-
we'd have to prioritize the programming to have CMAC eligible projects.
Right. Because we've got projects to be named
Because
later.
it's
not
only-
Cohoes.
We only have, well, I won't get into it, but there's only one intersection project that have CMAC eligible, right? And then the rest are all bike pads. And most of them are pretty low on the list. On CDTC's list.
So the list here is all the tap CMAC candidates.
So the highest rated tap CMAC bike ped is Bethlehem, second is Gildoran's. Third is $9.4 million. Saratoga County. So.
That was a very important project.
Don't gang up with me yet.
So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Right now, what we funded, there's one project that would give us additional money. It's DOT, that was about 6 million. So we'd be looking at about 12 million and change the program, hoping Cohoes gets tap CMAC.
We're hoping to get
Cohoes
it
doesn't get tap CMAC. Then that's $6 million hole. But I mean, like I said, what I did understand, I tried to talk to Sandy a little bit, was, when we went through this exercise earlier, DOT had a higher number, proposed programming than CDTC's number. So I was like, well, how come DOT has, where are we? You would propose programming more dollars than CDTC. So that's my question was, well, why? Where, I couldn't figure out the numbers, and so.
Remember what we talked about at previous meetings. The department has to first instance every dollar that gets spent by this, it's state money. What they do, representing the department here, is try to get as much of that into the federal program as possible, so they get reimbursed, right? That's what's being done. So there is, in the state budget, there's a dollar value sitting there somewhere for what Region 1 more or less would get. It's divided across the state, obviously, but there's some flexibilities what I'm hearing them to say, which is what allows them to offer this option.
The initial reason we suggested over programming was because in that mix, we anticipate relief from tap CMAC to get us back to full constraint. That's basically what I'm saying here, the same thing. It's
Yep.
we can shoot over with the understanding it's highly likely going to balance.
If we program the other tap CMAC eligibles.
It doesn't have to be a tap CMAC.
And I think that's the key. I
Right.
think a door has opened.
The door has
We
opened.
should all take advantage of this and program whatever, 7 + 7, program 14 million.
Right.
That'll leave, 5, Steve?
Yeah.
No, he didn't get it.
So say we overprogram by 6, 8 million, and then we're able to bring it back down to even once we hear about tap CMAC. What happens, October one, when we have an amendment for $2 million. Do we, or should we be leaving a buffer there? Because if we're fiscally constrained on day one, it doesn't mean that we're fiscally constrained on day two.
It never has.
We've never remained perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some of these projects won't get delivered, right?
Right.
I mean, I hate to say it.
Cash flow. I mean, hence our rolling number.
And the rolling, I mean,
And we have no idea the impact, the true impact of the inflation, right? So costs for even the existing program that we approved previously could be going up as we're sitting here in this room. So that's a consideration as well.
Whenever we've seen extreme hikes like this, they do come back down. So this is not. You can't run around crying foul because.
And that's why the design only option right now is much more palatable.
It's encouraged by the Fed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So the comfort level from what I'm hearing is we could over program by 68 million. That creates a new range of 14 to 16 million. Remember what we talked about earlier in previous meeting, would like to consider leaving some money on the table for something that comes up during the public process to be able to address that. I pitched the idea of 5 million, doesn't have to be 5 million, but it can be a million or two, whatever it is. If we, to Jacob's point, if we program to the dollar, whatever that dollar is, it ties our hands a little bit, but with facing public review. But this does open the opportunity to tip down the bike ped list a little bit and the intersection safety list beyond what we've already discussed.
at this point, we're programming how many hundreds of millions of dollars. You save 1 or 2 million for, right? That's like a rounding error.
Again, that's why I pitched the idea of 5, but it's your discretion, I think this is a difficult process because this time around, there's no buffer. We don't have a lot of time, is my point, to respond to changes, so.
Has the public review process in the past ever actually led to new, it has?
Yeah, it has led to changes.
What is the public process? Is it like a popularity contest? If more people submit comments and notes on a project to the stage or what?
Obviously we get those kinds of comments. It's been more situations where, there's been a discovery of some new information, like since the project was proposed, oh yeah, we didn't realize this, or this new thing happened and the cost changes, more than that scenario. There's also been situations aside from TAP CMAC, as there's other programs out there. So a project might suddenly get an announcement, oh, by surprise, you were in the state budget. Did you know you were on page 7,322, right? You know what I mean? So it's more of those scenarios where the unknown happens and, something gets freed up.
And more function of the time. Yeah.
Right, the crunch the MPO CDTC is up against right now is the NISDOT main office wants us to deliver all the upstate MPOs minus the New York City MPO. We have to deliver our tip to them by July 15th. That date is subject to change, but as of now, that's our job. When we back up from that, considering we have to have a policy board approval and a public review period, minimally for air quality conformity purposes, 30 days, doesn't leave us a lot of time to finish what we're doing here. So that's why we're under a little bit of a time crunch. And we'd like to be able to get through, and we haven't even gotten to the other story, which I'll share with you about transit funding, because we still have to deal with your stuff at a future planning committee meeting, because that's also part of our tech update. So we will have to have another planning committee meeting in the month of May, unfortunately. And I know this is a lot of your time, but I direct your comments and questions and concerns to the highest ranking officials in the state of New York.
To move this along, because obviously you have to, we're saying 6 to 8, so maybe we just say 8 or 7 to be programmed, so that makes 15.
Right.
Take 3 of that as the buffer. And then just today, because it needs to be done today, it sounds like, program the remaining 12. So then you have something to go out to public comment with. You can kind of move this forward, because I feel like we're now at that point of spinning wheels. So I guess
Dinner's coming in.
Filet mignon and
If you
chicken
take the
cacciatore, I don't know.
7.9 that's left, subtract Albany County's ask and Troy's ask, what's that, 1.448? You add the Cohoes project, that gives us about 12.5. Cross your fingers, the Cohoes project gets funded. That gives us 12.5. And then-
Cohoes is already in our yes column, correct? So that's
Yeah.
not part of this equation right now.
But he's saying it's gonna bring it back down.
Well, that would be the only, that's, at this point, that's the only.
Oh, I see.
CMAQ hope.
Yeah.
You don't have any other hope on the list.
Right.
Yeah.
And we talked TAP CMAQ is just gonna add projects.
Yeah.
The only one that's funded that could possibly give us more money is the Coast project.
but I think what we're,
So that would give us 12.5 million, which is the number, I guess.
So let's put the Cohoes project aside for a second, and I think going back to what Ross is pitching, let's just assume if you agree, we would have 12 million to program now, reserving 3 million for any tweaks or adjustments that need to happen as a result of public review.
I'm kind of with Steve, like Ross I'm not following the line to the open door from DOT.
Greg, can you say it again?
Say
Yeah, I
it
think
a
that-
different way?
I think the whole, I think the key part is, and I don't know how this happens, Greg, you can explain it, is we're not solely relying on the tax CMAQ money funding all of these projects to deal with an overmatch.
Right.
Or not, sorry,
Yeah.
an over program.
We're to help the process along. We're suggesting we overprogram or count on some amount of relief in TAP CMAQ. In combination with that, to balance the final books, if we're still not balanced, DOT can make up the last little bit with an overmatch on their own projects to bring us to the finish line.
Okay, so there's another, Sandy's point.
We don't have much, but we can take a couple million of federal off of us, one of our jobs, and put a couple million of state on it and reduce the federal portion. Balance the final book.
And as Sandy stated, and I brought up a couple weeks ago, there's that potential that there will be funding, surprise funding provided to certain projects. Whether that be from federal money that filters through the state that the governor's office is kind of holding off on because they want to announce it in the near future.
Those 60 some programs we've been talking about.
So if, someone shows up with a big check for $5 million saying, here's assistance, that will have a significant impact on the local project.
Right, I mean, there's so many unknowns with these other federal grant programs, we're just learning how many applications we have heard have been submitted through the Arise program. More than I thought in this region were submitted for consideration. We have upcoming programs that are being released right now. All of that will, on the back end, balance the books long-term, but for right now, the kind of accounting trick, for lack of a better way to say it, is being proposed is that the state can offset a little bit with state funding if we overprogram some federal. And then we get some awards. And this is all tied back to your kind of internal requirements with respect to
Yeah, really, it's just regional balancing.
regional balance.
Fed and state funds, right? Couple bucks left.
Right.
Propose we start figuring out the 12 million.
Yeah.
So there's no to that.
Everybody comfortable?
Nodding your head.
We don't need a motion on that. We can just proceed on that basis. Everybody's comfortable. It's a good path forward. The door is open.
Would we be motioning in the Albany County and Troy projects?
That was state. And I think we're all comfortable.
And you're talking only in pavement beyond preservation?
So there are two pieces. If we want to circle back to those two options, the Albany Shaker Road and the Troy proposals, we can address those in a motion. That reduces the 12
Yeah,
million.
the 12 then goes down.
Then
Yeah.
12 goes down, and then we talk about bike ped in the intersection categories.
What I think you wanted to do, yeah, CDT doesn't have any, doesn't get influenced by this. So I'm just saying, for what it sounded like the committee wanted to do was say, all right, how much do you got left? You know, you have 12 million. You've got two projects that could go for that 12 million. But you might want to look at what are all the remaining projects, looking as a whole, and then pick what goes into that 12 million.
Yeah, because we didn't over program, we didn't have the over programming conversation
Until-
or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an open door.
So I guess if that's the way we would want to move, I've just got some numbers here. I still want to show it as over programming, but if we take our 306 and we say that we're going to over program by 8 million, that brings us to 314, 242. And then if we then pull 3 million out for a buffer, that means our total funded program number should be 311, 242. And then our final column will show as negative programming, but
I
if-
see Chris Mullins raised his hand. I don't know how old that
Well, thank you for noticing. City of Schenectady is recognized. Chris, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question. And I know you all missed me being around the table. It's so much quieter this way. But I just wanted to be clear that we're looking to, I mean, I feel like we haven't done the full list. We took a break. We didn't do bike ped, we didn't do intersection, but we're already looking to amend what we did. I don't know if I would be 100% on board with starting to add and change things until we get through the entire tip. I mean, the city of Schenectady's #1 project, we haven't even discussed it yet, but we're acting like we're already at the end of the goal here. So I would propose that we continue on looking at the whole tip, and then we get to adding projects that didn't make the first cut that we had at the last meeting.
Yes.
Concurrence around the table. I'm seeing a lot of nodding.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank you for raising that, Chris. Okay, we'll.
So we'll start with the bike ped category, and
Can I start off?
the target that we had, which is not gonna be enough to fund yours.
No, but if I start off, it might go.
Okay, so let's give Jacob a chance to pull that up.
So, yeah, if we're moving to our bike and ped category to program, our funding target for that was about $12 million, and we funded none of that to this point. I guess I should point out, though, that as most of you probably remember, we are over programmed in some of our other categories, which is why we're kind of dealing with the amounts that we are right now.
Right.
So if we want to, then I guess we can start doing it as we did last meeting, where we just kind of work our way down the list and start funding. So
Start with the highest dollar amount first.
Start with Glenville.
do
Project
we want
75.
to, are we shooting for that 12 million? The fund to 12 million or?
Yeah, for now.
Okay. So we fund our first.
Whoa, you're funding the percentage of the target that we talked about last meeting. So it was 7%.
Which is $12 million.
Of the 12 million available.
Yeah.
Okay. 7% of the 12 million available, right? So it's less than that.
Maybe if Chris could
Well,
speak
the
to
funding,
this.
the target for bicycle and pedestrian projects.
Oh, it's, I'm sorry, okay, I misunderstood. I got the other
7%
number
of
confused.
our target that we used was 179.
My apologies.
No.
I confused it.
So if we fund our first 7 projects in the bike and ped category, that's 12.5.
There are some taxi maxes.
Yes.
Keep in mind.
I would take the Bedford Street project off of those.
Take it out, okay. So no on compost Bedford Street, #9.
Yeah.
When
I
you
just,
the one you
I'm
just
gonna put them
put
all in and pull it out.
Oh.
Just so I know.
Yes, project number 9, City of Cohos.
What's your ranking?
That's the project.
The
ID.
project ID number is
Just
number
the-
9.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I
Just
didn't
a-
see such a low number.
It's just-
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
They refresh failed. Oh,
Oh,
no,
no.
that's a first.
No. Sandy, Schenectady County would consider thing. We've got the $1.7 million Grand Boulevard project, which we are already doing. And some of that work with the other project funded, the ADA ramps, and we
Okay.
talked about trying to finish some of that with some of our other funds. We'd swap that out for a cheaper pavement project on not, which would free up a few more bucks in this category. If that's something the committee would consider. If not, we'd like to have this considered for 1.7, but we have a pavement project, I think that's 1.880 on not or something.
Okay.
So that would free up some money in this category if the committee was okay with the swap. And we would try to, complete that sidewalk project.
What's the project ID number?
Uh,
71.
71.
71, which is 0.878. That would save some money. I mean, I'll call it save money. We'd still push for this if the committee didn't want us to do that, but we haven't talked internally that maybe we could try to complete that sidewalk work with some other funding. And we are getting some of that Grand Boulevard work done with the other project, the ADA ramps and the bike lanes.
What under bike ped are you looking at? So you're like that. Thank you.
1.716.
Okay.
That would free up all like 900,000.
Okay.
If that's, throw that out there.
Something for the.
I guess in the spirit of Cohos is out there too, so that we got some more money to reach a little further.
Are all of these open for discussion or are you looking at?
Yep.
those? Okay, then let me hit, there's one hidden here. It doesn't even show up hardly. But the Zim Smith, I think I made my presentation 2 meetings ago about Saratoga County projects and particularly the Zim Smith drives engineers and the DPW that I talked about trails and stuff like that. But on a county level, it's looked at as far as something that's critical to a lot of lifestyle type categories within the county. And it has a great importance because we are at 12, and don't worry, I'm not talking about 9 million, Steve. What I would like to do is I've met before with the county administrator, chairman of the Economic Development Committee, DPW, and talk with other locales about projects here. I'd like to say the county is going to make $3 million of its funds available, not for just this project, but for other projects that we'll talk about. But they would be willing to just take this on as design only for the $500,000. And then, so Steve, that gets us to 8.9 on this one later, whatever, but we'll look at $500,000 now. The other thing is I did misspeak before, wasn't purposeful though. There is an application in for TAP CMAQ for the Zim Smith Trail. So that in itself, it may disappear. It may not, but anyhow, that's my only point on that one. That we'd be willing to just do a $500,000 funded through Saratoga County.
That is ID number 70.
66.
So just to follow up on that, averted a crisis here. So funding the first 6 projects, first 5, skipping the City of Cohos project and then funding the town of Bethlehem, brings us to about 10.8 million of bike and ped projects, which is 2 million under our, or 1 million under our target essentially. But 2 million, we're now getting into our over programming on the total. We're almost 3 million total over program.
What
you
was
have
the,
Grand
what was
on
the
that
target
list,
developed for the
Jacob,
bike?
Grand Boulevard? At 1.7, is that in your calculation?
Yes.
The last time was significant.
So the committee
Yeah,
went
that's why I was.
funding the other at 0.88. Yeah, I'm just, that there'd still be some more money in the bike ped category. I mean, like I said, the committee doesn't want to go that
Right.
route, I'd still push for Grand Boulevard, but we're willing to swap it out, and which would give another 0.9 million, or I think 0.9 million for this category, if that's, I know it's a lot to do on the fly.
This Adam from East Greenbush, I need to weigh in on behalf of our project. We've been after funding for this. It's the busiest town road in town. We would, for several years now, it would connect several pedestrian generators like middle school, a neighborhood with I think about 36 homes across the street from middle school, ball fields. This was identified a long time ago by the town, but recently kind of identified during a complete streets workshop in, I think, 2018 that we held with CDTC support. We have been talking with the school district. A lot of this project would occur on their land, so there is the potential for capital support from the district itself. We didn't include that in the estimate because there's a separate school funding process. But we did include a letter of support in our application with that project. So it's possible that once we get closer, some of the federal money would be replaced by other shares like the school district. The idea too would be to connect this to the town's kind of main intersection and then also make a link to the Albany Hudson Electric Trail that would be kind of part of this. I also wanted to note too that this was found on all of the three lists, those three scenarios would fund this project. So, and then of course there's the geographical balance. I felt obligated to make the pitch for our project. So.
Project number, Adam?
74.
74, yeah.
Adam, the recent improvements to Route 4 to connect to the trail. And then that continued towards Skodak up to Gilligan?
No, so we're under construction right now for the 9 and 20 sidewalk project that's on the current tip. So once that's done, we'll have DOT has made substantial investment in that corridor to your point. We'll have sidewalks all the way up to, I think it's Greenwood and Hayes. So not quite to the Skodak line. I think if I understood the DOT approach to that as ADA funding was available, that they would keep rolling down to Miller Road where the trail does come in a little bit off of 9 and 20.
So again, you're dealing with a continuity connection issue similar to many.
Yeah, and there was a pedestrian, actually one of our current board members, her daughter was, there isn't most of the crashes are at the intersections on either side closer to 9 and 20 and to the south at Hayes Road. But one of the key drivers also was a crash, injury crash involving her daughter back in, I think it was like 2008. And there's a neighborhood across the street, from the school where she lived, and it's so this project would address that connectivity too, and also lay the foundation for connecting larger neighborhoods further to the south, several hundred housing units.
We've
there.
got the new development starting, right, where the old Weatherding.
That's on 920 further to the north and west. Yeah,
But
Yeah.
the rest, I mean, connecting to the ball fields to the middle school.
on the sidewalks,
Yeah.
right, yeah, absolutely.
So just to bring it back a little bit, I asked Jacob to put this chart back up so that you understand where we're at as a whole. Because we over-programmed in the bridges and the pavement categories right now, even though our target by percentage was 6.7% for bike ped and 9% for intersection safety of the original dollar value, we're nowhere near that, right? We don't have, 24, 20, was it 20, almost 28 million we were assuming last time. We only have 12. So going back to the bike ped discussion for a second, before the design only conversation and the conversation we just had with respect to East Greenbush, ticking off yes on the projects we have right now amounts to how much?
10.794.
Which means we pretty much don't get to an intersection project. So again, I want to bear that in mind. If we, we can make some of the adjustments we're talking about, we're not going to be able to reach that far down on interstate, on bike ped, if we do want to fund something in the intersection safety beyond the one project that was funded because of the HSIP conversation last time.
If the Zim Smith we're saying, okay with that, I'm saying 500,000 for whatever, does that 500,000 impact those figures then?
They would go up. So we would probably have, have to get the design.
Well, so,
value.
I mean, right now, even tentatively funding those, that would leave 2 million left out of our, plus 8 million over programming. So we're, right up against that line.
So
already.
for bike ped, can you go back up to the top? Let's remove, I'm sorry to have to do this, but let's remove the Bethlehem. And the next one, which I think is Scramble.
Yes.
Just remove them outright for a second. And what is the dollar value there?
7.037.
That would leave us something to program in another category. This is your decision, folks,
Yeah,
but
we're removing
Cohoes and Grand Boulevard.
Yeah.
And
Well, a portion of Grand.
And Cohoes is
and I
out,
would-
correct?
Yes,
I would
Cohoes
fight
wasn't-
for grand if the committee didn't want to do the swap, but the committee's okay with the swap, I'd say take grand out to save some money.
so if we add in design only for Grand Boulevard, that's what you're,
No, what I'm saying is
0.9.
with grand, we have another pavement project at 8.8
you're removing.
that we would, if I could swap it out, I could live with that swap out if the
Okay.
committee was okay, and that would save about 0.9 in this category.
Okay.
If the committee wasn't okay with that, I'd fight for grant, I'd say, okay, we'll fight for grant still, but so
But I
that,
guess what I'm trying to communicate is it's your decision, but if you want to fund something in the intersection category, we would need to stop here.
so where's?
We're stopping at the first 4 projects, so you're just above Grand Boulevard. And again, committee's discretion, you can, accept the proposal that's been made, but we don't have $12 million program just in bike ped if you want to fund something intersection safety. So I just want to make sure that's clear to everybody.
When you say within intersection safety, because the
I'm not counting Swatling Road and I'm not counting the one you just,
Okay.
because that's not, we haven't made a
Right.
motion yet on that, so that's not real right now.
And can I ask an overarching question? I get to be in 2 different counties and I live in Skodak. So if we're talking about these projects that show ADA, things like that, that's literally that's what the bulk of that money is for, right? Push buttons for crossing streets and ADA compliance and redoing sidewalks that already exist or bike trails, as opposed to East Greenbush, which is, one of the oldest corridors in our area that gets little funding.
Right.
Just finally has sidewalks for the first time ever. We're talking about connecting the middle school and elementary school and brand new bike path in the state just put in. seems like they're getting the shaft.
All
It's not
that is,
included.
well, that is, what you just said is documented in some way in the scoring, right? So that
Correct.
the benefits are cooked into the.
Right.
Yeah, and that project, didn't it was 9, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is odd to me,
It's
but
it's a rural, it's a more rural environment than say like Craig Street in the middle of Schenectady,
Sure.
which, you know what I'm saying? So the scoring process reflects market,
Right.
how many users potentially you have on the facilities. There's those sorts of criteria baked into the review.
So say if you're going with the top 4 here,
Mhm.
that's gonna open up some funds for the intersection safety project.
Correct.
Get us the first 2 or so in intersection safety.
So let's take a look at that just so you can see what that would look like.
So if we just look back down to our total, shooting for 311 million, we're at 305. So we've got about 6 million to play with in our intersection safety category.
What's the original target though for that?
For intersection safety, the original target was 16 million.
So 9%, so higher than bike path. So that's why I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that.
If that's something that people propose, that's one we consider design money for our project. Like that. For reaching to that intersection stuff to fund some of those.
Yeah, and so to finish that point, so the first 2 projects in intersection and safety would be 5.7 million, which is, that's essentially our 6 million of remainder. So by pulling those out, we could fund 2 in the intersection safety category.
Now, that's not including the proposal, obviously, Andrew made about Troy, so keep that in mind.
Could that also accommodate design for that one?
We can see if that math will fit in there.
We want to reflect Andrew's proposal as for illustration of putting River Street on and taking design only to
Federal.
federal.
I would like that.
So we'll reflect a yes on 93.
Okay, well, we've got to pull 21 first, right?
Correct. So we're switching 21 to design only at 668. Funding 93 in a full. Do we also want to, while we're taking these off, do we want to consider Steve's proposal on the Grand Boulevard? Well, I guess it doesn't help us right now. Let me not confuse the issue. Let me withdraw what I was about to say.
Well, I don't, as of now, neither of those projects are funded. right?
That's why I was saying that. I'll withdraw what I was about to say.
So from making that change, funding. What's it, we're funding 21, project number 21 with design only, 668,000. That brings us down into what we're only 200,000 over programmed right now. So we have about 6 million, 5 or 6 million left to program.
What is 21? For some reason I can't see.
That was the federal streets.
Federal Street corridor in Troy.
Troy.
It's pavement.
Payment
2
restoration.
roundabouts over the
Where's it
Green Island Bridge.
It's beyond preservation.
Oh, beyond.
Beyond.
So we do have some other, I'm referring to them as options on the table. Plus your comfort level on the balance between bike ped and intersection.
So we only have one intersection?
We would have 2 because we did previously fund an intersection project at our last meeting because it was a safety project from the department.
But from this list, it was just that
From this
one
list,
that
it
was
was just the
number
one.
3.
Correct.
You're not looking at any other,
You said you had
it's your discretion. I mean, again, this is the balancing act, you know, this, we could fund 4 bike pads, we could fund 3 bike pads and 2 intersections.
Well, with intersection safeties, are they more likely to be eligible for?
There
ASIP?
possibly, some of those intersection projects are truly, I would term more mobility focused, not safety focused, so, the ones that are more safety related, I'm looking at this as quickly, other than Swatling, I think was Clifton Parks Route 146 one. I think also the Tanahawkers, 236 backward.
North Line Old Post was back in, that's 2011, was over 3.5 times the average crash rate.
I'm just looking
average.
quickly at the
That
list,
was
I don't have that.
8 years ago now.
Yeah.
Hasn't
But a
gotten
lot-
better.
A lot of these are mobility though, because they don't have the crash history and the roundabout that in and of itself, which a lot of those are trying to deal with, along with the bike ped, they don't match the crash histories that are going on out there. That's what we found in our preliminary assessment. But until you do the actual design work and do the crash diagrams, you know, we can't really answer that question. But that is a possibility that some of these could be.
But in a big programming, picture here, just because it's the last thing on the list, therefore it's not.
Well, that's why we wanted to show you the target. I mean, we previously were, again, this is an estimate, it's a target. A little more in intersection safety than in bike ped, that's what we were targeting, but you know, the balance of it, the way we just worked it out, that's not how this is shown right now. But
Bike ped,
that's-
even with design, you have opportunities through the CFA cycles. But I think intersection safety, it's really through the tip. That's the only crack at the apple.
Crack at the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, you know, again, if we were to rebalance this so that we do a little more in the intersection safety and a little less in bike ped, let's remove project 15 for a second.
That's only 100,000.
No, that's not really gonna help us, is it?
How can you even have a federal aid project?
I know. who
Well,
wanna do
let's
it?
leave it like that. Let's leave it like it. She'll find out. She's gonna do a lot of work for $100,000.
Susan didn't relay that message. to
Over.
her.
Revisit how
That
it's at.
You don't want federal aid for
So let's add in another
$107,000.
intersection.
So
Well, no, I mean, I understand what the,
right now, we're
I
looking at
understand the reporting
5.2
requirements.
million.
Yeah, so
And
add
if
in
we don't
another
fund the first two, it's
intersection.
5.7. So we
That's
just be
not
a
coming
little
towards their head
over.
by a piece.
Go ahead, can we show those?
It's only 14 intersections.
On those 3. What's the impact?
Hey, Sandy,
Yes, Chris, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask a question. I'm not there to see, but I'm looking at the dollar values of the intersection safety projects. You know, and they're 2, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4.5. I mean, they're big. They're not, you know, I just, is there one that we're looking at? Is there, I just, cause you would have to make some significant drops to get to those values. These aren't like, you know, $1 million projects. They're quite large. So are you looking at, I mean, if it was just the top rated one, that's only 2, but that's essentially the smallest until you get down to video-based traffic detection.
Right,
Yeah,
so
you-
we're gonna over program for a minute and then we're gonna work backwards to get us back to where we kind of need to be. And we are
Okay.
gonna go down the priority list as established by the evaluations. We'll start with that.
So if we're looking at the first 3 projects in intersection safety, that's project number 54, project 90, and project 93, which Andrew swapped with one of his other projects for the design only. That brings us to 10.5 million in intersection safety. That's not including Swatling Road that we programmed with HSIP earlier. And that brings our total funding to just over program to that 311,242. So that leaves our $3 million buffer and gets us right around where that over programming target was.
No, design is rambling, I just-
That does not.
So we've been just making. So.
The only design project is the city of Troy right now.
Correct.
Okay.
So we would need to work backwards. You know, we could lose one of the bike pads in anticipation of maybe, you know, some awards coming from TAP CMAC. Which ones are TAP CMAC eligible again?
Our project is Zim Smith, but it's not. You guys are just knocking me down. I'm gonna raise.
$9 million project there, right? I know, it's expensive. Let's see.
With regard to the bike ped, I'm not as familiar with the Glenville project as I am with the Schenectady. And the Schenectady corridor of Craig Street is, and I won't speak for Chris, but I will support this application completely because it's a long underserved area with a lot of use, and the benefit of that project implementation would be extremely high.
Thank you, Andrew. What's your favorite restaurant?
Given that there's two City of Schenectady projects at the top, if we at least removed one of those two in light of that comment, it doesn't help us a great deal, but it gets us, starts ticking away at the balance.
Well, one's only $500,000.
But
we're over by 5 million, so we need to bring this down. Something, things need to come off this list or go to design only.
Well, no, with the over programming picture, we're right where we said we could land today.
Are we?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're
We
like
haven't gone to the
300,000 or
next category.
400,000 over, but that still gives us our $3 million buffer.
We didn't go to intersection safety.
Yeah, we got
Well,
the
Yeah, we do have programming.
Let's go back to intersection safety for a minute.
So we haven't.
We haven't discussed it.
No, you're right, we haven't discussed it.
What's your question,
Well,
Rob?
I still like to promote background on the design for the Cherry Avenue Use Path. It hits a lot of the conversations other projects have talked about with the Albany County Rail Trail, school location, neighborhood stuff, and we're willing to take design money to work for that project.
Was that about design?
We're willing to accept design money, not the full construction.
Oh,
money,
go to
but
design.
the Design option.
Now, here's the thing
And that
on
was
that.
300,000 is what was.
All right, so in that, you're gonna go with. Okay,
And it's also our only project. It's the only project that's not that one.
all right.
And the TAP CMAC candidate.
It is a candidate.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Noted.
No. My point is that, and I know what Rob's saying, okay, willing to say, okay, go with it. He'll use that. I'm looking at funding that design. Whereas he's looking at saying, and I'm not saying this against your pride, I'm just saying, Rob, if Saratoga County, whether it's in this category, go down below, I have 3 million to put against design. In doing that, is that not going to be reflected in any of the total cost decrease?
Well, if you were to commit to
Yeah,
a number, we
if you-
could drop
That's what
the
I'm
value.
saying.
and
Right,
say the
so
federal
can
portion
you
would be-
express the 3 million that you're willing to swap?
Well, my first was Zim Smith, $500,000.
Mhm.
That's one.
Well, your goal was to reach other projects. that count.
Yes,
Right.
and I'm going into that in the next category, and that's why all of a sudden we were going, and we hadn't even discussed those categories. And it's the only category where we have projects that are really local
Can you hide all
projects
of
rather
the
than say department projects or city projects. Yeah.
Just hide the. only show the
Well,
back
the city guys are making out big time here, you know.
City is a city.
I understand that, and everything is weighted to cities in our review process. So that's just, I'm gonna take over. He's not here. I'll take that part on now.
Okay, so let's go down to the intersection safety category. We do have Route 2 SWAT line already funded. We have added in this pitch, the proposal from the city of Troy, so River Ferry, we put a yes. And then we had the top 2 ranking projects, both of which are in Saratoga County. I know you wanted to say something more, Mike?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at, I have 3 projects. If I don't use the $500,000, if it doesn't happen within Smith, then I'm looking at, if you gotta circle these or note these, $500,000 on number 82, $1 million on 83, $500,000 on 73, and $500,000 on 89.
So this is county money towards
Yes.
municipal projects?
Correct.
Okay, can you read that again, please?
All right. In actuality, I've got another half if I don't get Tim Smith, so. Number 82 is a half. Number 83 is $1 million. Number 73 is a half. And 89 is a half. And
You're saying you're gonna put money towards projects that haven't made the list.
yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying yes. I'm just putting it up there on there. I'm not putting it to the top 2 that are rated there, correct?
So you're looking at pass on 54, the Kin Road.
54.
Top rated safe.
No, okay.
No.
So it
Oh,
doesn't
no.
help us.
It does help if we
Yeah.
can. If we can somehow rein in funding. I mean, I'm looking at a project 83. Again, East Line Road, you're gonna be sick of hearing it, but I want to keep bringing it up. East Line 67, you know, this is a report right here, linkage study, 2006. Suggested roundabouts in 2006. It's not 2006 anymore. It's long ways past that. Malta, Saratoga County, which is reflective of, I think, our projects in Mike's defense, one of the fastest growing counties in this state right now. Drive through it, you'll find out. Drive on Route 67, especially mornings or afternoons. I guarantee you will say, Mark Hammond was right, Town of Malta, they need that roundabout to correct what's going on at that intersection right now. So if I can scrape up support and money from anywhere, I'm gonna do that. That's how badly we need this project done. We've talked about this for a long time in our town. DOT has recognized it on their list. We gotta get this done. It's not a matter of, okay, maybe we should, it's gotta get done. And I'll do whatever gotta be done to make that happen. So if it's a matter of adding up a little bit from the county here, a little bit from there, I'm gonna go after big boys, global foundries. You know, that's that elephant in the room. Guess what? It's not if, they're there, they're growing, they've already applied. That's gonna make this situation that much worse. We have the town of Ballston, we have the town of Milton. You know what? They're contributing as well. I'm gonna be knocking on their door as well, looking for some funding. Again, this is gonna be a hard sell on my behalf. And I thank Mike for stepping up and trying to give us a little bit. You know, we just want to wet our beak, so to speak.
I'm looking at this and I looked at DOT's, first time I looked at DOT's list. I said, Bob, what's your favorite restaurant? But that was the first breakdown, and just look at the project candidate list under here. It's the first one that showed up. I mean, I've got here Town of Wilton, Town of Half Moon, Town of Milton, Town of Malta, Town of Clifton Park, Town of Wilton, Town of Malta, City of Saratoga Springs. These are all their local road projects. And we have had an approach in scoring, and it's just, that's the way we've gone with this, is that we look at urbanized areas, look at cities. We look at EJ numbers, we look at other numbers that rate higher than, and the scoring moves these projects as far as towns, town roads, town bridges, the trail system. And I go back to Zim. I've got Zim, it's been since 1996. And I'm not going back to look, we'll leave that out, but I'm just saying, we've had a project that's been there since 96, going back to safety. We've had a project that has got, with the addition of 3 miles just now into the city of Mechanicville, we pick up the southern end of the county. We're looking to add 4 more miles on to get us, add on to the 12 we have already. That's going to get us up to SPAC, the state park, the golf course. Then the city picks up with their trail system, brings in a trail system, and study we've just gone through now is how do we get from out of Saratoga Springs, connect with Wilton. So we're starting to make the move through. And this Zim Smith was looked at as the spine of trail system through Saratoga County. Liz brings an application in to say, how can I get off of the Zim Smith for the village of Ballston spot? It's starting to serve its purpose. It's taken that long. We went for a linkage study, didn't get, made application with TAP CMAC. We'll see what happens with that. But I'm seeing here, I'm trying to come to the table fighting for projects that were weighted against us already in scoring in that regard. So we hit with, bridges and pavement preservation, we can score on those, but when we start coming to the other things, it makes it difficult. Then we got the county stepping in, says, all right, phone conversation with administrator last night, okay, 3 million. But his thing was, I want the 1 million of that going to this intersection. The intersection that Mark was talking about, we have looked at it back when Sandy was doing staff stuff. We had this project with the town of Ballston. We had with Malta a study. We had the department come in and look at lowering road elevation in there. There's a lot of safety issues. We had at the intersection, particularly in concern, we pushed for a roundabout before, and then what we got were 2 left turn movements. Just recognizing what was happening there. Now, we have one name that here is not even on the table, is the town of Ballston, right next door. They were in that first plan done by BJ, or what's his, Buckhurst Fish and Giacomo, okay? But Ballston doesn't have the foresight or the dedication to put in money forward, and they're holding us back. So at this point, we got Malta has brought this project in, the county has looked at it and said, we need a roundabout there. It's not all of a sudden popping up that we need a roundabout there. It's been there for 26 years. We talked about it.
So
right now, Mike, you have $5.6 million of the intersection safety money funded in Saratoga County, right? Is that we're proposing the first half of the project?
So even to bring Mike's points for, in the first cut, Saratoga County has 4 projects. Correct?
5 at 7.5.
5 projects. So are you willing to swap one for another within county? Is that what I'm hearing
I
you
think
say?
he's willing to bring in $3 million to free up tip money to reach these other projects. So the county's willing to commit $3 million to fund some of these local sponsored projects that
Okay,
otherwise.
that's what I wanted
won't
to,
get
I just wanted to bring it back to that point. So if we're comfortable with that, we can make that adjustment in this table so that we're reducing the Saratoga County first cut projects by the dollar values he mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that is not what I had heard from Mike previously. But if the idea would be to reduce his Saratoga County projects and add that 3 million back to the table, that's different than him providing a match or a portion of a match to a non-program project.
But then does that project being reduced still remain eligible for an amendment to increase if the funding becomes
On it,
available?
if it's on the program, I mean, you folks have the discretion to cap things, but you, let's be honest.
Well,
That hasn't worked great in the past.
No, I
so.
mean, well, we did it for our road project, but you know, it's one of those.
Battle non-story.
Yeah, that's an extreme. But you know, it's just if we're trying to get to a certain point,
Right.
and it seems that that point is important to the sponsor, then if those concessions can be made and they work within the construct of what we're trying to do, let's do it.
So if that's correct, then which projects would we be reducing? Are you, these numbers, right, these are not the projects we're talking about, the ones that you mentioned.
No, no.
Right.
So those are projects that are not funded that he was proposing to add a, we'll call it an overmatch. What I'm hearing now would be, and to remove essentially $3 million of federal money that's committed to Saratoga County right now, to free up that money for other projects in the county.
That's correct.
Yes, that is, yes.
And are those just
That was
reductions to the estimate, or are you considering just a design option on any of those?
I'm sorry, I was.
That's okay. Are you, would that be a reduction to the cost estimate on these projects, or would you be considering just a design phase on one or?
For the ones being
For the
added,
reduction? No, for what's programmed.
for what's
reduce it.
programmed, the county's still gonna follow through. They're just gonna
Yes.
offset it with 3 million of local funds.
Okay.
But the projects that are being reached are more off of the DOT list with that design
Okay.
only option, because the majority of those local projects were on state routes. So the county realizes the regional impacts of that traffic network. And because the local projects aren't eligible for Marchielli funding, if they're on a state route, that if we can do the design only and get the state to a position that maybe the state next tip follows through with the construction. If not, the locals have that option.
So it's not a reduction per se, it's a
Correct.
augmentation.
So for the purposes of
You
this,
see, Ryan took my seat this morning. I would have had John whispering in my ear.
we'll get to which the dollar value in each specific project, but if we reduce just this group of Saratoga County projects right now by 3 million.
Or for the purpose, it's just overshoot by 3 more million and we'll back it out later. Is that an easier way to do it?
I think it's easier to back it out now.
Well, I mean, I think we would need a local or a commitment to a specific project on where that money's coming
Well,
from.
I'm telling, that's what I'm doing. The last 3 meetings, I've said that. There is
Right,
a-
but these not the 82, 83, 73, and 89 were unfunded, so we need the ones that are in the first cut now.
I think
are
what
we
we're saying,
reducing?
Mike, is that the 3 million should go to a Saratoga County project that then you can offset to free up that money.
What's in our first cut then that I'm looking at? Because this is gonna be a decision that is, I've not discussed. You're right. I have not
Well, right,
discussed
that's kind of a
fine.
bigger
Yeah.
question.
Sandy, is there, because there's a lot
Mike.
of funding requests being changed, other than just if it's design only to not design only.
Yep.
That has a huge impact on the scoring, right? We say like density and all these other factors are a big factor. The biggest is how much you're actually requesting. And if you take a project that has, it's asking for 3 million and you drop it to 2 million, that score is gonna shoot right up.
Okay.
So how does the tough part of it, I don't know how you make a decision until everybody comes back and sees what the new scoring is and how things are placed.
And also, and we don't have time to rescore, but more importantly, we're running out of time today, so we could stop right now. What do we have that would be new and would be part of what we'll call a second cut?
But
Because we added in Federal Street. And all the.
We reduced Federal Street.
Reduce, I'm sorry, reduce Federal Street,
and
added in
River.
River.
so
It's 4 by cuts.
Yeah.
So on the bike ped, you're still, it's a top four
It'll be
or
the
you're
top
not-
four.
Top, no, wait a minute, top four includes that 107 to Saratoga Springs.
Correct.
It does that,
Yes.
okay.
We have the 3 intersection safeties. That's there. The only other change was the other, the Troy. Swap.
And the intersections, you said 3?
3. Yep.
Being the first 3.
And our Swatling Road HSIP project that was approved last
Right,
last
that
week.
was previously, but just what was added today in this proposal. So let's make sure that this is reflective of what we discussed. So we would add in the 4 bike peds, project 75, Glenville, Rivers Ridge Road, project 18, City of Schenectady Craig Street, project 20, City of Schenectady, the park connector expansion, and project 15, the Saratoga Springs pedestrian ADA signal project. We would also add in the Kings Road project in Saratoga County, Town of Wilton, traffic safety, and Troy's River Ferry with a cost switch to the Federal Street project to design only. So that was the only other new thing that we put in the table today.
I gotta ask a question. What is the number on that first one for Saratoga County? I've scratched over this thing so many times.
1.977.
Yes.
54.
Yeah, 54. Thank you. I just gave you some
That's okay.
maths.
Taking lots of notes.
And again, so with all of that tentatively funded, we're right at our over-programmed target, which leaves 3 million for public review or, buffer.
Additional discussion. So if we were to put pencils down for today, we are gonna have to meet again, as I said, in May for the transit and a few other things that'll likely come up in the next 2 weeks. We'll refer to this as a second cut, if you agree. We obviously still have to take a motion on all this, but what's your comfort level with that and coming back in May?
Well, we have to take a
You're gonna have to make a motion on this, yep.
To beyond reservations, Federal Street and Albany Shaker.
They're included, Albany Shaker, there's other proposals such as Albany Shaker asking for design only. The switch with Schenectady Projects Grand. The Zin Smith design only, Bethlehem design, those would not be part of the second cut right now. But again, you guys all have to take a motion on where we're at.
Sorry, why wasn't Albany County design only considered in this cut?
Because it's a pavement preservation.
Before we had made that motion, we moved to bike and ped to program the remainder of bike and ped in intersection.
It wasn't a motion, it was just a proposal.
Do we want to wrap that up here because it was brought to the table today and it's live?
What do you think? Part of the second cut?
Up to you, the committee.
I would suggest to be part of the second cut. Considering the concessions made and the viability of it.
So this would be the Albany Shaker Road to design only at $780,000.
project number.
I would like to.
Project number one.
If we're gonna look at that concession, I'd like to at least consider Bethlehem and East Greenbush's concessions as well. And if East Greenbush would like to go design only.
Yeah,
Does that work?
That was good.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to make that call today. Just on its face, it makes sense. Is this something we could deal with at the next meeting? Or maybe tentatively as part of this, and then I can reconfirm next week or whenever we meet again.
Yeah, we'll talk about the schedule as to when.
It probably works best to bring it back to the table just after you've had discussion. I mean, you've got the movement going now. So whether design only fits your needs, maybe that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'll have better understanding of the numbers too. So yeah, I'll bring that back, but I appreciate the sentiment and keeping us in the mix there.
So I know you mentioned both Bethlehem and EP, but Bethlehem is, I've spoken to, when you speak to town supervisor, we're willing to take the design line. So if that can be put on the table outside of waiting for English.
Like
Figure
the
out
money.
balance on the front here, you know?
Okay.
If
So,
we resolve Mike's proposal, then
I think it'll help us but you have to go back to the county, right, to verify?
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
main thing is to say, now, we're looking at taking. The main statement is that take 3 million from projects that have made the cut already.
Correct.
To make available design only for
those
some of those
For
road
those other
projects.
projects. Okay,
For Zim and then the 5 or the intersection.
Right.
so
Okay.
if we were to recap that, let's do a quick math here, if we could. So that would mean 780,000 towards Albany Shaker Road for design only. We would add in Zim Smith for design only at 500,000. We would add in Bethlehem for design only. We'll have to get the
300.
300, okay. We'll confirm that.
Yeah, actually, I think it was 393
393.
in the application if you wanted the extra 93,000.
No, I was looking at DOT's list.
That was a guess on percentage.
was.
It wasn't out of your application.
Oh, okay.
So
In the application,
Okay,
it was
understood.
393,
Understood, I
so
was going
if we
off
want to
the-
be safe.
I know
And then
that-
we have East Greenbush design only. Andrew, if you're listening, could you just confirm the Bethlehem ID number 72 and the East Greenbush ID number 74? Design only figures, please.
Okay, I'm working on it.
Andrew, in Bethlehem's, it's in the notes. There's a supplemental note about it, so.
Okay, let me, there's 100 files in this one. I'm going to take a look at number 74 first and then follow back to 72. On East Greenbush Skilligan Road, the application design cost was 270,000.
And what year was the design?
They requested second year design, third year construction.
So 4% inflation?
We inflated per the NICE program guidance to the anticipated year of construction. So it would be 6% is the inflation rate we would have used.
6% to 270.
Are we adding these as
So
tentative?
these would be tentative, the second cut reflective of the reduction in the federal aid that would be assigned to the Central County.
But we don't have a reduction yet.
Oh,
Good job.
look at you, look at this beauty.
Which color highlighter would you like?
So, I mean, ultimately, the ones that are above the line for Saratoga County, you would reduce the federal share.
Right, we
You
can,
would still keep not eliminating any
Yeah.
of there. So there would
Correct.
be an ending resulting overmatch by Saratoga County.
right, we can make that adjustment.
So to reflect that
Makes sense.
for everyone's digestion, as we overshoot by another 3 and put an asterisk that this is going back down by 3 for the Saratoga County.
Well, if we add these,
The design.
if we add these designs, it should be around 3.
Right.
So we should be.
You want the Bethlehem Cherry Avenue design?
So
Yeah.
now the,
So in the application note you mentioned, Jacob, they have it broken out preliminary design and final design. So the preliminary was 267,000. And the final design was 126,000. and that adds up to 393.
And what year?
The construction year would have been second year. So we would have applied a 4% inflation to bring it up to 409,000.
Okay.
So what we're saying is for this strictly for me.
Yep.
I'm going back then and saying, okay, probably two projects that made the cut. So I'm going to the county administrator and saying, you fund these fully through county funds. That what we're saying.
Not fully,
Fully.
whatever the
3 million.
percentage it meant, right.
But I got $1.6 million and I got $1.3 million, somewhere like that.
I mean, he could.
I mean, it's your call. Do you
You don't
want to
understand that. but I
pull
just
one
wanna
of
make
those
sure we're saying,
candidates? That you're gonna
okay,
fund it
they've
with
come
the
up with this, and I'm saying, okay, guys, we've changed in the scenario that I talked with them to begin with, all right? And then we'll say, okay, out of the county coffers, boom, you're gonna take on the full funding of these, okay.
That scenario, why would you just fund the design of these other projects?
Because they didn't make the cut, I couldn't do that, so there was.
They're not supported as
Yeah.
heavily. Now, where are we with the Malta roundabout? Where
That's
was that?
one of the,
That's one of the,
that's one of the ones that we're looking at saying, okay,
okay.
out of that 3 million, 1 million towards that.
So Mike, I want to be clear though, the funds that you'll be providing municipalities will be for design only strictly, or just?
No,
No.
Well, for example, look, I'm just throw out something. I haven't even figured it out yet or looked at it because I've got to have that conversation. Number 54, I was just talking about, and I couldn't read the number. It's Saratoga Road. It's a intersection safety.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I
That
guess-
one, that's $1.9 million. That's like 2 million.
Right.
So I'm saying, that's why I'm trying to
But
clarify.
the municipal projects that will be added on are for design only.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
See, there's that John whispering in my ear again.
And those,
That's as far as he gets too.
what is the list of those municipal projects here?
So, all right, I'll read them to you again. All right, number 83, 1 million. Number 82, $500,000. Number 89, $500,000. Number 73, $500,000. And the big boy, number 66, $500,000.
That's
Three.
And that covers the design costs for those projects.
I'm looking at them, talking with my engineer at the end of the table and Mr. Scavo, they're telling me that these $500,000 are really kind of high in some of them, so.
Okay, so we had two kind of conversations going on in parallel here, so let's close the loop on this one before we jump into the Albany Shaker Road and these other ones. So what is the net impact then? Well, we know the dollar value of impact, but
Okay,
where's,
so.
no pressure, Jacob. Just-
These
He's like,
are all in the same category. I don't.
No, you're doing a very good job. Thank you for
They're
keeping
all
up with
like
that.
The bike had an intersection.
Okay, okay.
Should go with my violin.
66 ticks right there, column 11.
So it's gonna be a program and a 500,000.
Sunny Sunday.
And then yes. And this is the only one in bike head, so if you want to throw a yes on that guy. it's about this. Intersection. 82, first one. $500,000. Here's the next one. That's 1 million. 73 is the next one. We already got 66 earlier, so.
Roll, the total is.
So basically 3 and change over, but that will be corrected later.
Right.
So we're 3.5 over. We've got
It's
3
really
million
one.
coming back.
Coming back, so.
Okay.
Right.
And we were a little over to start that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So that doesn't, we still haven't added Albany Shaker
Right.
or Bethlehem or potentially Greenbush.
Correct.
East Greenbush.
So for the second slice, since you're gonna get back to us, right? You're correct. Okay. So the purpose of this, just put those 2 for this slice with the understanding that there is gonna be a revisit.
There may be
in 2
another
weeks.
cut.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I put them both.
put them on.
Okay. Okay.
Don't let them fall off the table.
Both
So
are all
and
three.
then
Are you,
Bethlehem and
want,
East
you want in on this first cut?
That's, I think, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. that's-
Okay, put it in then.
Okay,
I thought that's what you, yeah.
Oh, I'm
right.
sorry.
I think
thought
we
you
had, we were waiting on.
Pass
Okay.
until altogether.
Oh,
I'm
no.
sorry.
No, no.
I'm trying
Not there.
I forget about it.
Yeah, it probably makes sense.
So do we have a design amount for?
Mark the terrace.
so for East Greenbush, it was 2, 6, I believe.
And that was project 74.
74.
But I thought you were gonna leave the whole amount for that one, though. Yeah, that could make it depending on their conversation.
Oh, I thought we were tentatively gonna move the design, he was gonna get. back to
Yeah.
us.
Oh, okay. All right.
But yeah, we'll make that note in the formal action. This is gonna be quite the motion, Carrie. I hope you're ready.
Um,
Who's ready to move?
Well, we'll recap what we did here.
I mean, so
Need to move
the
this so
bike
she
ped
can
stuff,
see the
we're
screen.
skipping over projects that fund design only. That's the point that makes me uncomfortable, is that you skip over Skeggy County's project and reach down to projects above below, fund the design. Because that's what we're doing, right?
That's the proposal as it stands, yes.
Grab the Albany Shaker.
No, not yet.
Okay. Just pass that stuff there.
So where are we?
Where are we there? Can we live with that for today if we recap this? Okay. So let's see how we can best recap this for everyone. Oh, well, I guess Steve, you wanna ask me a
Yes,
comments?
of course.
There's Steve behind us.
Pleasure. Pleasure of the committee. Before we move and vote, is there further discussion on everything presented as we made this cut? Second cut is still a draft proposal to move forward. It's a positive path forward. Thank you all for showing good faith and keeping the door open for positive progress. With the understanding there are many variables. One thing was noted is the difference between the state and federal schedules. The budget years are 7 months off, and that's always a big factor that affects funding. But I just want to mention that. Any other discussion?
Someone can summarize what.
Well,
I mean, I.
Is
I'm
it
not-
easy enough to do just as with a motion to accept the second cut as per the chart, as per the spreadsheet, rather than itemize all the changes?
Put a
Because
title on it, moved by planning
Well, let
committee.
me see if I can add those
50.
new projects, all that design only, then we could maybe show that, just so it's a little more clear.
because it's not a final product,
Right.
until it becomes one.
It's an evolving draft, showing positive progress. Noted.
Maybe show the table in the minutes of this meeting.
So we'll lock the table as presented. A lot of work. Good faith efforts noted.
We appreciate everybody's willingness to collaborate and cooperate on this. And we knew with the limited funding, it was going to be a challenging conversation. So I do thank everybody for thinking outside the box and trying to find some workable solutions. So that did not go unnoticed by me, and I'm sure not by others in the room. So thank you for that.
Get online.
And I want to add to that, that we've gone through 3 or 4 meetings and there's been bantering back and forth with Steve and I, and there's no problem, guys.
Transportation.
It's all okay.
That's not the expression he had.
Only because my
You
back
can't
is
see,
full,
but
that's
that's
how
what
I know she's gonna say that.
Feeling those laser
Look
beams
at,
on your
how can
shoulders.
he come up with anything verbally different after I just set him up like that?
Every day he's a cartoon strip. Here we are. All right, so we're memorializing this table as part of today's due diligence.
Jacob is doing his
Yes.
very best to kind of make sure we've got everything indicated with a new.
Do we want to recap it verbally, or we had
I can run down here just to double check if anyone else is checking these out.
Yep.
So for new projects program today, I'm gonna go down the list. First is bike ped category. Project ID 75, Freemansburg Road, multi-use path. That's full funded. Project 18, City of Schenectady, Craig Street Connector, fully funded. Project 20, City of Schenectady, Schenectady Park Connector. That is fully funded. Project number 15, City of Saratoga Springs, fully funded. Project number 72, Town of Bethlehem, Cherry Avenue, that's a design only. Project 74, Town of East Greenbush, design only. Project number 66, Sim Smith Trail Extension, design only. Project 54, Saratoga County, County Road 109, Kings Road, Plank Road intersection, fully funded. Project number 90, Town of Wilton Traffic Safety and Pedestrian Connectivity, fully funded.
Jacob, if I can interrupt, if you go all the way back up to the first under DOT scenario, thought you said fully funded, but at Glenville, it shows design only.
That's our suggestion, ignore that.
I just lose that column.
Lose that column.
Lose the column.
Yeah, when we show this in the minutes, we'll eliminate
Yeah.
those filtering. Those are
Okay.
all filtering.
Yeah, I just kind of have those there so we can.
Yep.
Okay,
Good
so
question, thank you, we want to be all
our
clear.
our choice is not reflected in the column yet, but what you're. iterating.
Yes and new. And if it's.
Oh, it's just
reduced
that-
amount.
It's shown on the numbers. It doesn't show that it's been.
Right,
reduced. Okay.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm just using the number as the design
Okay.
only.
Thank you.
Jacob, great job, continue, please.
So I don't know where, we'll continue as in Smith. Or no, we were on.
You were at 90.
90.
Number 90.
90.
Yes. So Town of Wilton, traffic safety pedestrian connectivity, that's fully funded. Number 93, City of Troy River Ferry intersection, that is fully funded. 82, Town of Half Moon intersection improvements at Route 236 and Guide Board Road, that's design only. 83, Town of Malta East Line Road, Route 67 roundabout, 1 million for design only. Town of Clifton Park, New York Route 146, Miller Road and Tanner Road roundabouts, design only. 89, Town of Wilton, New York 50 safety improvements, design only. City of Troy, Federal Street corridor improvements, that's design only. And Albany County, Albany Shaker Road corridor enhancements, design only. So that's what we have, as I've noted, as new projects today. Is that, anyone else was following, is that check?
We noticed.
Could I ask one question?
See,
The three bike ped design only, what's the total? 72, 74, 66.
2, 4, 66, the total is 1.195 million. And the Bethlehem project, two of those are top CMAQ candidates, Cherry Ave Extension and Zim Smith Trail. The potential for $1 million of that to come back on.
Very good. Good recap. Any final discussion as we're coming up on the noon hour? right now?
Motion to accept.
Andrew? Motion made, second. Everybody vote. Here we go. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, all done. Oh.
That'll work there. Thank you, everybody. I know we're late in the day. We'll try to rifle through the rest of this tip discussion first, which is our schedule. As I mentioned earlier, we do need to schedule more meetings. I'm sorry, this is, well, we're ultimately, we're gonna debrief on this whole process. Yes, there were some, challenges thrown in with the way the state has been handling this process, but I think there's things that we can do to maybe streamline things here, and that's gonna be the purpose of our tip committee moving forward. So we'll work on that. But in terms of our schedule, it looks like we'll need to have another meeting in the month of May. I know you guys have been meeting pretty much weekly now for a couple of weeks. I'm thinking, because of our public involvement requirements, what I'm thinking is that we can meet either this third week of May, second or third week of May. I guess it's technically is the first week already, the third or the fourth week of May.
18th or 25th.
The 18th or thank you, 18th or the 25th. The 25th would be the absolute last minute we could do it. We're gonna have to bump our policy board meeting out. Chris Bauer, does that work for air quality conformity?
If we do it on the 25th, then we would have to move, just in the time of preparation of the document, we'd have to move the policy forward.
So it can be in the last week of June. It can't be in July. We're now. For
Is
other
it already
reasons.
25th of June?
It was the 18th of June. So
We
can move it out.
we would have to release it the same day. That would be possible.
Okay.
It's the 18th, bad, is that?
It was a pre-advisory committee meeting, I think, Chris.
Well, we could.
We can reschedule that.
Thursdays are the 16th or 23rd.
Yep, so the current policy board is June 16th. We're gonna have to bump that out to the 23rd regardless. If not even the next week, the first week of the fourth, whatever the next week is, the 30th.
That'd be tough.
That's because of a quorum, I know, that's the
I
problem.
won't be at it.
This is the
I'll
problem,
fall into
DOT
it.
is not considering, not you two, but your counterparts. All right, so we're gonna have to then go with May 18th for this next meeting. It's just scheduling wise, we're gonna have to do it. We also have to coordinate with our counterparts up in Glens Falls, because they're also doing their tip at the same time as us, and we're all bumping up against the same timing issue, so we'll reach out to those folks. So let's plan on meeting here again on May 18th at 9:30.
CDTC is next week, so it's a week.
Yeah.
You guys are okay? Okay.
We'll be set.
Okay, great. The rest of these items, is there anything, they're all discussion items, but was there anything, Carrie, you wanted to just touch upon real quick with 5310, just quick status?
Sure, so we have almost $1.5 million available regionally. We received 8 applications totaling over $2.5 million for those. The evaluation committee did meet, has reviewed them. We're finalizing our evaluations and our rankings, and we expect to bring those back to this group and hopefully both this group and policy board by the end of June.
Great, thank you. Hydro selection news, I don't know that there's anything.
No,
discuss there.
there was only one change since last time we met, small description change in the DOT project and project delivery update. Not a whole lot to comment on there.
Okay.
So we have our spreadsheet online and here at the meeting if anyone wants to review it.
Okay, anything from
We
DOT?
didn't bring anything new in a long meeting, so.
Okay.
we're good.
I think we can forego the status of planning activities in the interest of time. So our next meeting here would be May 18th.
Good with everyone. Any new business pressing? Motion to adjourn? Move second by Andrew. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. That was
Thank you.
tough, but great
Good
job.
work.